Welcome to MKE Arts Live. I am extremely excited for today's show. The theme is Women of Impact. So without further ado, this is Susan Spencer performing the poem Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou.
Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's in the fire in my eyes, and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist, and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. Now you understand why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care. 'Cause I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me.
Thank you again. That was Susan Spencer with Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. She's a Milwaukee-based actress who's performed with the Skylight, First Stage, and Milwaukee Chamber Theater. So welcome again to MKE Arts Live. My name is Adam Carr. I will be your host, and our theme is Women of Impact today. The show is an exploration of Milwaukee's incredible arts, culture, and creative community here in Milwaukee. This is actually our 6th episode, second of our 2nd season. And I would like to introduce to you guys Miss Deb Farris. Round of applause. So Deb is the president and CEO of Danceworks and is a really incredible woman. And I'd like to start sort of at the beginning of your story. Can you tell me about growing up in Milwaukee and your family's experience?
Yeah, I first have to backtrack, though, that incredible woman thing. You know, I have a hard time with that one. I always have, so the opening poem was really good. Thank you, Susan. How many of us, you know, really embrace that, being a woman, feel comfortable with that without moving into territory that sets us up against men in an uncomfortable way or whatever? Sure. So let's start there. You know, I had an incredible mom, I can say that, but she never felt incredible. I think, if anything, she said to me, oh, I made you girls so insecure all the time. And, you know, what is it? How do we empower? How do we pour into our young women so they understand their value and all that they can give? So for me, it was a long journey to feeling comfortable with that, and I still struggle with that. But I was born in River West on Humboldt in a duplex for my first 3 years, grew up there, and then spent 6 months with my parents and brothers camping across Europe as my dad studied architecture on a fellowship. And then when we got back, my mom was a farm girl, didn't like living so close to the in-laws, and found a farm in Brookfield, 10 acres for $75 a month, and space for horses. And my dad had fallen in love with horses from Wilkie's Dairy Farm in River West, and when he found out he could have a horse, he was sold. So we moved out there and spent 10 years out there. And one camping trip, we were coming back, it's 1967, tried to get into the city, and the National Guard wouldn't allow us in. And that, of course, was during the time of the riots and all the disruption. And my dad said, that's enough. We're moving back in town. I'm putting you kids in public schools. So when everyone was leaving, we came back in.
I was going to say, that's sort of the opposite of the story we typically hear of a family saying, that's enough. There's an exodus of white families at that time from Milwaukee out of the city.
Yeah, but we got a really great house on the east side for $17,000. And I have it now, so it worked out.
Yeah, the upside of Blockbuster, the Blockbuster deals. So then can you talk a little bit about your foray into dance? So from my understanding, it's a little non-traditional. You may have come to dance a little bit later. Can you
I hated it. I think I probably begged, can I please have a ballet class? And I was 5, and we had to lay on the floor. And I had to wear my pajamas for the recital, and I did not look back to dance after that recital for, 12 years. When my mom started taking ballet at 45, that inspired me to try it again, and second time was a charm. I fell in love with it.
For sure. And then you ended up coming back to Milwaukee, and you did other things. You came back to Milwaukee, and you continued your pursuit of dance.
Yeah, and I was 45. That was hard because a dancer at 45, I had been in the theater, and, I had been in the theater and tried dance in my mid-30s. I auditioned for a contemporary dance company and fell in love with that and never went back to theater. So I was really grounded in dance very late in my career. Most people were retiring by that time. So it was from that dance, then that experience that I continued to build more and more in dance. So coming back to Milwaukee, I was 45, and how do you connect to a dance community at 45? It was really a time I couldn't perform really and prove anything. I didn't have students to follow, and so Marsha Parsons at UWM said, come on and do your MFA in dance at 45. And I thought, well, okay, it would connect me to the community. And I did. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And it was really difficult. She said, you'll have fun. And it was the most incredible dancers that I had really come to experience. I couldn't walk. After 2 weeks, I decided to quit and was trying to sneak out of UWM when Janet Lilly saw me and said, Deb, come on, you forgot we have an appointment upstairs at 1. And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, all right. And I said, Janet, I really have to tell you this isn't for me, I can't do this. And she said, well, that's interesting, we were just talking about you, and what a great job you're doing. And I thought, whoa, that's the thing. We don't understand the impact that we're having, generally ourselves. It takes someone kind to identify that and acknowledge it within us. That's why we do the work that we do in schools today. So I did my MFA and did some guesting, sub-teaching at Danceworks. And I was talking to Sarah Wilbur, the first artistic director, and said, Sarah, I honestly don't know what I'm going to do with this. Maybe I'll be executive director of Danceworks one day. And 2 weeks later, I got a call from the board to see if I would interview for the executive director.
And that's actually when we met. So I met you when my mom, full disclosure, worked at Danceworks in the community arts side of things, on the visual side. And I was kind of grew up around Danceworks, so I really looked up to you. And I remember when you arrived at Danceworks. And in the 15 years ensuing, Danceworks almost seems like a different place than when you started. Can you talk a little bit about kind of these last 15 years, you're in your 16th year, now the president and CEO of Danceworks, and kind of what's grown with the organization?
Well, I first want to comment on your mom, because we did off-site classes at UWM. I was on faculty at UWM, and we taught at Danceworks. And that's how we got extra rent. That's how it helped pay for my salary. We partnered through that, as well as other dancers. And she sat in the back of that class and watched my class, and I have never seen anyone have so much fun. And I thought, okay, I think I'm doing the right thing. So it was your mom then, and I would say now, that we are not that different. We're much, our impact has grown. I'll say that. But what it appealed to me when I interviewed for the job was the work that was being done in the community, a commitment to taking the work that was being done in the studio and in the theater out into the community, and especially to people that wouldn't otherwise have it. So at about a $300,000 budget then, now we're at 1.3 million, kind of ceilinged out because we've outgrown our space and we're sort of packed in there, but still that same mission. And that's what connected me to the work, and I found out right away pretty quickly that we were about $40,000 short that first year, and we had some work to do. It was a scary time, but that was what inspired me. Mm-hmm. I knew what dance had done for me in my life. It gave me structure, it gave me discipline, it allowed me to think about things other than myself and my problems, just focus and rise above that. And everybody should have an opportunity to connect to something and to someone that can pour into them and give them hope if they don't have it, but mostly to identify their incredible, unique value and their potential to be creative in this world.
So Deb and I had a really wonderful conversation you can hear the rest of, which is a podcast. So we had a wonderful hour-long conversation. We're going to have more with Deb in a moment. I would like to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my mom, who isn't here right now. But if we're on this camera, Janet Lou Carr, I love you. Thank you for being a woman of impact in my life. I think she watches these. She'll give me feedback over email, not so good that time.
Yep. Deb, you look so tired.
So don't tell us those things, Mom, this time, because we know it's coming. All right, so we're going to do a real quick field trip through video. So we went across the river. We walked over there to meet Karen Bell at Bavette La Boucherie. Karen is an amazing chef who runs a restaurant and butcher shop in Milwaukee. And let's go right now to Bavette.
My path to being where I am now with Bavette and opening Bavette and how it came into existence, I think, is just a culmination of my adult life, my professional life cooking, which includes living in different cities, traveling a lot. So I had my own restaurant in Madrid for a few years and before deciding to move back here to Milwaukee, where I'm originally from. And when I left the restaurant in Spain, I said, never again will I ever do another restaurant. It was just really, it was a lot of work. It was really hard, and I didn't think I would ever want to do it again. And then finally, when I was ready to, never thought I would, but coming back to where I'm from and being pleasantly surprised to what I had missed out on over all those years being gone, and to see the bounty that we have in our backyard. I wanted to try to be a connection from the farmer to the direct consumer. So opening up a butcher shop and supplying the meat from farmer to consumer was one way to do that. There was also a resurgence definitely happening throughout the United States of going back to old world traditions and whole animal butchery. And so kind of all of that coupled together, I decided to open up a butcher shop mostly. And it was just going to be a butcher shop with a small cafe where we would serve some cheese and charcuterie or a couple sandwiches that would change from day to day. And you know, I was new to butchering, so part of it was my learning curve as far as you get in this huge animal and there's only a small part that people actually want to take home and cook with, and then there's a huge part that we're left with to try to figure out what to do. And that was a really important aspect of my business plan, was to get in the whole animal so that we could be sustainable and we could be traceable and continue the old world traditions. I put myself in tough positions or make myself do things, because otherwise, if I thought about it too much, I wouldn't do it because I'm very shy. A lot of people do make comments about me being a female or woman, not just in the service industry or in the kitchen, but also as a butcher, So I do have a full-time butcher, but I also am able to do all of that myself and, have become a butcher over the years as well. It's true, there are more males in my industry than there are females, and there are a number of reasons for them. Although I do feel like that is changing. Like, it has become an easier place for women to work and enter, and as gender roles have changed for women and expectations have changed for women, it becomes easier and easier. But, when I started, many of the kitchens I worked in, I was the only female, and I was with a bunch of guys. And it made me almost maybe a better cook because I felt like I had a little bit more to prove and more to show. And so I would work harder to be right there with any male on the line and be the best, whether I was female or male.
So that was Karen Bell at Bavette, which is just a couple blocks away in the 3rd Ward. I guarantee you that it probably tastes better than it even looks, so you should go check it out. And Karen Bell was actually recently announced a finalist for the James Beard Award, which is the highest award you can win in cooking in restaurants. So, all right, we are now on stage with 4 incredible people. Thank you for letting me be with you up here. And I'll give you guys a really quick introduction. Marcy Kearns is the Associate Artistic Director at the Milwaukee Chamber Theater. Ashley Town is the owner of Bayview Printing Company. And Dasha Kelly is a person who defies description, but is also a poet, author, performer, and artist, founder and director of the Still Waters Collective. All right. And I wanted to start for you guys to give a chance to tell everyone here who you are and what you do. Can you just give us, you've all been invited here because you're amazing. Can you just give us a rundown of who you are and what you do in an unfairly short amount of time? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Still Waters Collective uses spoken word and creative writing as a way to build confidence, community, and capacity. And what that means is finding ways to be creative in spaces and invite folks who are already creative to be creative in that space, for people who don't know that creativity is a bridge to other conversations, to trick them into seeing that that's a possibility.
I wear a lot of hats. I'm an actor, director, teaching artist, arts administrator. I work primarily with Milwaukee Chamber Theater as the Associate Artistic Director, but I also instruct for First Stage, and they're acclaimed young company, their academy, their education department. And I'm a college professor.
That was a lot of hats.
It is.
Yeah, so I own Bayview Printing Company, which is a 100-year-old letterpress print shop in Bayview, and we are sort of founded or focused on a community-based model that magic happens when people come together and create things with their hands.
Cool. So each of you, our theme today is Women of Impact, and my impact might not be the same as your impact in the community that we live in. Can you talk about how you aim to have impact through the work that you do?
My first interest, the impact I wanted to have, was just to create space, and creating space for people to feel comfortable stepping into it and telling their story, for people to feel comfortable of wanting to hear other people's narratives for selfish reasons, for healing reasons, creating space for people to imagine things beyond their everyday, what was possible, shows and book tours and friendships and relationships. We're going to be creative together, and in wanting to make space for people to feel comfortable and to feel safe and to speak their story has created a rippling effect. It vibrates out the impact, and that continues to surprise me. But I found that if I stay focused on what my heart and my passion is driving me to do, then I'm not distracted or seduced by any of those other efforts of being the voice of women or the beacon of black magic or black girl magic or black magic, either of those. But just I want to make space, and then how to create unexpected opportunities in that intention.
For sure.
I love that you mentioned story, because I feel for me impact is ephemeral. As a theater artist, we can't necessarily know the impact that we're having. So I aim and hope for, I'm glad you asked the question, aim, to comfort, to move, to make someone laugh in performance. But I also find that a lot of the work that I do is about empowering or providing a platform for a rising generation of theater artists. And more I'm discovering young women are turning to me for that.
Yeah, I feel like my goal has always been actually like very similar to Dasha's. You know, I just bought the shop 4 years ago, and from the very beginning, I knew that I wanted to use this treasure chest full of historical art objects to allow people, or teach, I'm going to use the word teach very loosely there, but to allow people to make something with their hands, which I feel like really is lost these days. There's like so much creativity and all of that happens, but so much of that is lost when everything is digital. But also to build a community of folks that uplift and inspire one another. I know it sounds really cheesy, but there is like magic is the only way I can explain it. There's a certain magic that happens when 12 strangers show up to a class on like a Thursday night, and then they're all doing something that they've never done before, and so they're like problem solving together and creating together, and like meanwhile sharing their own personal stories with each other. And I just kind of feel pretty fortunate to get to like witness that all the time and literally just provide a space for it. And so, yeah, this sort of unexpected impact that is happening now that I'm not sure how it's going to unfold is that I feel like we get to collect all of those stories now that we hear from people, or at least like witness them. And I'm not sure how yet we're going to like share those with other people, but a lot of times I feel like Bayview Printing Company is like this little tiny macro or micro view of all of the awesome happening in Milwaukee. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll find a way to tell other people about it.
Thank you.
I always felt that way about Danceworks, just this little tiny thing, the little engine that could. I think what you've all spoke to it, I like the unexpected. I didn't know what kind of impact I was even capable of or wanted to have, and I don't think about that. It unfolds, and I think it's connections and it's relationships. And like I said, what's drawn out of you by the people that are around you. And you step back one day and say, oh, well, that's kind of working. Yeah, that's cool. Let's keep doing that. So,
sure. Absolutely. So next question. How would you describe the gender climate in Milwaukee? So the team behind MKE Arts Live, we were talking about what's relevant right now. We were talking about the Me Too movement, which is a hashtag now, but has been part of the substrate of our world for thousands of years, only now kind of emerging to the surface in some ways. Have you seen progress in Milwaukee, and what do you think are what's the work that remains to be done?
You know, I can only speak to like my own personal experience,
Sure.
But I do think the climate is changing. So again, like 4 years ago, when I bought a print shop, I definitely like dove headfirst into a historically male-dominant industry. And I should say that I bought that shop from a 76-year-old man. And so that came with a lot of clients that were similar in age and gender. And I would say the first year and a half was a lot of men walking into my business and telling me things like, where's your dad? Or where's your husband? Or you're not a pressman, you're a girl. Never lady or woman, but like you're a girl. So just like a lot, and a lot of that, you know, that seeps in and goes home with you and feels pretty terrible. But the shop has also become for me like the way, like the only opportunity I think I would have had to meet so many other like female entrepreneurs or just other women in Milwaukee that are doing incredible things. And so that's been amazing to like see that shift just in the past 4 years, to see so many women that are creating a life around themselves, like based on their passion and what they're good at. And so they're sharing that with people. So I think it's shifting, and I think our voices maybe are louder than ever and are more succinct than ever. And for me, the really cool part is a lot of us have tiny humans also that we're growing into
Sure.
hopefully great people.
Well, women rule at Danceworks. I just have to say that. We're just all women. We have one guy, poor Brian. He's a great guy. And we have a lot of male faculty. And as you know, in dance, I mean, we always want more men. So it's kind of flipped at Danceworks. I just saw a piece, Jessica Lang's company, which was really interesting to me in that all of her pieces can either be danced male or female. And it doesn't matter who is available. She can put whoever into the dance. And I think, to me, that's, not about what you are so much as about who you are and what you put into it, who you are in it. And so the dance world is a little bit different, and certainly Danceworks is. We've had that opportunity to really grow up women leadership within the organization.
Sure.
I think it'd be unfair to judge or rate my outlook based on the little world that I've been fortunate to create for myself. And in myself, I'm surrounded by people who get that women rule everything. You're so generous, Deb. But outside of my world, that may not be true. But I think I would benchmark this differently, that the gender climate conversation is melting in a way. So I was thinking about this coming in and an idea of like the defroster and the little flecks of frost. And an arc will progressively melt away. And it's in the conversation about gender. It's in the conversation about sexuality. It's in the conversation about sex even. It's in the conversation around all of the things that we've just moved through these decades and centuries with on autopilot, that we have these generations of young people who are asking, well, what does polyamory mean about? We have people that are, and generations above us who are saying, now, what about this bathroom thing? Maybe I should I just always thought it meant. And just to be able to have the discussion, which is new, is also breaking even the knee-jerk, this is what it means to be a feminist. Well, how about we redefine or not define what that means? So at every seat, it feels like those little speckles of frost are melting away because we're able to have a conversation. What that looks like on the end of it, maybe we won't need any more hashtags, but being able to talk on both sides, even on the other side of a Me Too, we're in this space of, well, what about the guy who's being pressured to, and it all not to undermine any of the familiar narratives, but narrative as identity just seems to be getting a clearer view.
Sure.
Look at that writer, look what she did.
Yeah.
I don't think I could phrase it any better. That's exactly what I was going to speak about. I won't echo you, but I will add to, in my pocket of the world, the first teaching job that I got at First Stage was because, in part, I was a woman. I had my boss, who was a woman, say, I need you to take this class because I need girls to know that girls can be funny too. And it's at that organization and at Milwaukee Chamber Theater that I've actually been pushed into the deep end of growing beyond what I thought I could do or wanted to do. So I feel very fortunate to have had opportunities myself because that conversation is changing. And so I feel it's a responsibility now for me to be with the baton, passing the baton along, and growing leaders, designers, technical theater practitioners, those who might not have thought because of their gender. No matter what that is, this is non-binary now, what they can do.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to take questions from the audience in a second, but we're going to do a first for the show, which is address the reality that all the people on stage are extremely busy, and Dasha Kelly has a gig across town that starts in 10 minutes. So I'm going to dismiss you from the stage, so you can hop in a teleporter and make it to your thing. Go.
Go.
Ahead. Take off your microphone. Thanks, Dasha. And okay, so normally during every show, someone's always like, I literally have a thing in 10 minutes, because everyone in the creative world is very in demand. So We're going to take questions from the audience right now. Katie has a microphone. And if you have a question, please raise your hand right now. Raise your hand. I actually have more questions if you guys... Okay.
Hi, I'm a 7th grade teacher, teach both young ladies and young men. And I guess if you were to tell your 12-year-old self, which is an extremely formative time in your life, one thing, one message, something you wish you learned at a younger age, I guess as successful, powerful women, what would it be?
Can I just jump off the opening poem? You are a phenomenal, beloved child of God. Let the love pour into you so you can pour it out. That's what I wanted to hear, needed to hear, and I closed my ears to it for a good 50 years.
Stop apologizing for things that don't need an apology. Like having an idea, like speaking up in a meeting, like having an idea, expressing that idea. Please express those ideas.
Mine would be really simple. I would say, get it, girl. If you want to do it, go do it.
All right. Thank you, guys. Another question from the audience? Anybody else? Raise your hand if you have a question.
Can't
Go
say
ahead.
simple.
Or not go ahead. Wait for 1 second.
No offense to the man sitting next to me, but why are there very few men in this audience? By, separating ourselves as women, are we alienating them? Are we making art for them too? How can we include them?
I have to say, I have a hard time. I don't think a lot male, female. I think human being. So it's hard for me to just speak from the perspective of a woman, although I am one. But as I think about any issue, I don't separate it necessarily male and female, generally speaking. So it's a good point. We may very well be alienating in that capacity. It's a good point.
We've been alienated. So sometimes voices need to be heard. So there might be a pendulum swing that's happening right now. But I, for one, know that my greatest allies have been men. They're the ones who have pushed me. So I welcome them. But I think this is a conversation that it needs to be ongoing. And I think that it's a matter of building within our own mentality with every choice we make or every community we endeavor to become a part of or make a decision with, to look in the room and make sure that what's running as part of the program, who is here and is everybody here? And maybe that's the first step.
Yeah, I think I kind of feel the same way about the pendulum perhaps swinging the other direction. I know in business or as a business owner, a creative, like a maker, I just always say human all the time. I always say we're surrounded by awesome humans. We get to see all the great people, like things like that, because it's very much how I feel. It doesn't really matter who walks into a class or whatever, but at the same time, there are definitely days where I feel particularly empowered because I am a woman, and I feel like maybe I'm doing something that my grandma might not have had the opportunity to do. So, yeah, I think there are just a lot of conversations that still need to be had and a lot of work to be done.
So we are now going to have a performance to close. So we have the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra's both members of Bowing Rogue are members of the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. Their duo is named Bowing Rogue, and they're coming through the door right now. It's Alana Sedepen and Margot Schwartz, and they are going to be playing, and I'm going to give the full name as they get up on stage. The first and second movements, the Andante and Allegro of Sonata Opus 3, number 6, for 2 violins by Jean-Marie Leclerc. So this is Bowing Rogue. That's Boeing, Rogue, Elena, and Margot. Thank you guys again. And that does it for today's show. Thanks again to Susan Spencer, to Deb, to Dasha, who's not here anymore, Marcy, Ashley, the United Performing Arts Fund. This is made possible by them, by UPAF, Radio Milwaukee, Epic Creative. And thank you all for being in attendance here and at home. Our next show is on May 7th. It's going to be an all-youth show, except for me. Again, I guess I'm always the exception to the theme. The Future is Now will be the name of it, and we will be at the Milwaukee Youth Arts Center. So thank you very much from Milwaukee Arts, MKE Arts Live. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.